We are fascinated by the apex predators of the ocean. We watch documentaries about them. We visit them in aquariums. We marvel at their intelligence and their power. We call them orcas, or more ominously, killer whales. But we usually watch them from the safety of a sofa or behind thick glass. We forget that in the wild, these creatures are the wolves of the sea. They are hunting machines that can weigh 6 tons. They hunt in packs. They coordinate their attacks, and they are capable of taking down prey much larger than themselves. Imagine you are sailing across the Pacific Ocean. You are living the dream. You have sold your house. You have bought a beautiful wooden schooner. You have your wife and your 3 children with you. You are free. You are sipping coffee on the deck, watching the sunrise over the Galapagos Islands. The ocean is calm. The world is perfect. And then, thud. A massive impact shakes the boat. It feels like you have run aground on a reef, but the charts say the water is 2 miles deep. Then comes the second hit. Crack. The sound of 3-inch thick oak planks splintering. You look over the side. You don't see a reef, you see black fins. 3 of them. You see the white patches, you see the blowholes. A pod of killer whales has decided that your boat, your home, your safety, your entire world is an enemy, or a toy. And they have just punched a hole in the hull, the size of a car door. You have exactly 60 seconds. 60 seconds to realize the boat is sinking. 60 seconds to find your children. 60 seconds to grab a knife, a bag of onions, and a jug of water. And then the boat is gone. You are left floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in a tiny, leaking rubber raft, surrounded by the very monsters that just destroyed your life. This is the story of the Robertson family. It is one of the most terrifying, yet inspiring survival stories in modern history. It is a story of a father's harsh discipline, a mother's unyielding love, and a family that refused to become part of the food chain. If you are terrified of the open ocean and the creatures that lurk beneath the waves, please hit that subscribe ** button right now. You need to hear this story because it proves that even when the monsters win the first round, the human spirit can still win the war. To understand the nightmare, we have to understand the dream. Dougal Robertson was not a reckless man. He was a Scottish dairy farmer. He was practical, tough, and disciplined. But he was bored. He was a master mariner by trade, and he missed the sea. In 1970, he made a radical decision. He gathered his family, his wife Lynn, his 18-year-old son Douglas, his 12-year-old daughter Anne, and his twin sons Sandy and Neil, who were 9. He said, "We are selling the farm. We are buying a boat. We are going to sail the world and educate you in the University of Life." They bought the Lucette, a 43-foot wooden schooner. It was a beautiful, sturdy boat built in 1922. It felt like a fortress. They set sail from England. They crossed the Atlantic. They cruised the Caribbean. Along the way, the daughter, Anne, decided to leave the trip in the Bahamas. But they picked up a hitchhiker, a 22-year-old student named Robin Williams, no relation to the actor. So there were 6 of them on board: Dougal, Lynn, Douglas, Sandy, Neil, and Robin. They were a tight crew. They were experienced. By June 1972, they were in the Pacific Ocean, heading toward the Galapagos Islands. They felt invincible. They had navigated storms. They had navigated reefs. But they had never navigated a predator attack. June 15, 1972. 10:00 a.m. The Lucette was sailing smoothly under a broad reach. The wind was fair. Dougal was on deck. Suddenly, a sledgehammer blow rocked the hull. The whole boat lifted out of the water and slammed back down. Dougal shouted, "We've hit a whale." But it wasn't an accident. Usually, if a whale hits a boat, it's a collision. They swim away. This was different. Dougal looked over the side and saw the whales circling. One of the whales had rammed the boat's keel. Another whale had rammed the side. The splintering of the wood sounded like a gunshot. Dougal ran below deck. He saw water pouring in like a fire hydrant. The floorboards were already floating. He realized instantly, the boat is dead. There was no time to patch it. The hole was too big. "Abandon ship," he screamed. "Get the raft." Lynn, the mother, was incredible. She didn't panic. She grabbed the grab bag, a sack with emergency supplies. She grabbed a bag of onions. She grabbed a bag of oranges. She grabbed the family Bible. Robin, the student, grabbed the water jug. They threw the inflatable life raft into the water. They threw the small fiberglass dinghy, a tiny rowboat called the *Ednamere, into the water. The Lucette sank in less than 60 seconds. 1 minute they were on a yacht. The next minute they were treading water in the Pacific. The whales were still there. The family scrambled into the inflatable raft. They pulled the dinghy close and tied it to the raft. They sat there, wet, shivering, and stunned. They watched the mast of their home disappear beneath the waves. The whales circled the raft for a few minutes, their dorsal fins cutting the water. Dougal held his knife, ready to stab the rubber if they attacked the raft. But the whales, perhaps realizing the boat was not a whale, lost interest. They swam away, leaving 6 humans and a bag of onions alone in the middle of the ocean. The shock wore off, the reality set in. They were 200 miles from the nearest land, the Galapagos. But the wind and current were pushing them away from the islands, toward the empty center of the Pacific. Dougal took inventory. It was terrifying. They had a 6-man inflatable raft, which was already leaking air, a 9-foot fiberglass dinghy, the Ednamere, 6 lemons, 10 oranges, 1 pound of biscuits, 1 bag of onions, half a jar of glucose sweets, 3 gallons of water. For 6 people. Dougal did the math. That was enough food for 3 days. Enough water for maybe 4 days. And they were likely weeks, if not months, from rescue. Nobody knew they were missing. They hadn't had time to send a radio distress call. They were ghosts. This is where the story shifts from adventure to psychological thriller. In many survival stories, the group falls apart. They fight. They panic. Dougal Robertson wasn't going to let that happen. He was a strict Scottish father. He declared martial law on the raft. He was the captain. His word was law. He rationed the water. 1 sip 3 times a day. He rationed the food. 1 biscuit, 1 slice of orange. The thirst was the first enemy. Within 2 days, their mouths were dry as sandpaper, their lips cracked. The twins, Sandy and Neil, were crying. "I'm thirsty, Daddy. I want water." Lynn, the mother, had to watch her children wither. She was a nurse by training. She knew the signs of dehydration. She knew their kidneys would fail. She wet their lips with a cloth damp with salt water, just to trick their brains, but she knew they couldn't drink it. If they drank seawater, they would go mad and die. Day 4. They were starving. The biscuits were gone. Dougal saw a shape in the water. A sea turtle. A large green turtle floating near the raft. This was their chance. But they had no gun, no harpoon, no fishing net. They only had their hands and a boat hook. Dougal leaned over the side of the fragile raft. He grabbed the turtle by the shell. The turtle thrashed. It weighed 40 pounds. It had sharp claws. Dougal wrestled it. "Help me," he yelled. Robin and Douglas helped haul the beast into the raft. They flipped it onto its back. Now they had to kill it. They used a knife. It was a bloody, messy business. But the turtle wasn't just meat. It was a water bottle. Dougal knew that turtle blood is not salty. It is drinkable. He cut the turtle's throat. He caught the blood in a cup. He handed it to the twins. "Drink it," he ordered. Imagine telling a 9-year-old boy to drink a cup of hot, metallic blood. The twins gagged. They refused. "It's disgusting." "Drink it," Dougal roared. "It's life." They drank it. It stayed down. It saved them. They ate the meat raw. They ate the liver. They ate the heart. They dried the rest of the meat in the sun to make jerky and to stop it from rotting. The turtle became their savior. Day 17. The inflatable raft was disintegrating. The killer whales hadn't popped it, but the sun had. The rubber was perishing. The floor was ripping. They had to pump air into it every 30 minutes just to stay afloat. It was exhausting. They couldn't sleep. Dougal made a decision. "The raft is done. We have to abandon it." "Abandon it for what?" Lynn asked. "The dinghy." The Ednamere * dinghy was a 9-foot fiberglass rowboat. It was designed for 2 people, maybe 3 in a calm harbor. It was not designed for 6 people in the open ocean. But they had no choice. They transferred everything to the dinghy. When all 6 of them climbed in, the freeboard, the distance between the water and the edge of the boat, was only *6 inches*. If a wave hit them, they would sink. They had to sit in specific positions to balance the boat. They couldn't move. They couldn't stretch their legs. They were packed like sardines in a tin can. Dougal sat in the stern. Lynn sat in the bow. The 4 boys sat in the middle, entangled in each other's limbs. They would stay like this for the next 21 days. Their legs developed saltwater boils, painful, open sores from sitting in the wet, salty slurry at the bottom of the boat. Their skin chafed raw. But they were afloat. Note: while the Bailey family famously used turtle blood enemas, the Robertsons relied on oral consumption, but they did use turtle oil rectally to help with hydration and constipation. The lack of fresh water caused severe constipation. This is a medical reality of survival. Lynn, the nurse, had to perform crude medical procedures on her own family to keep their digestive systems working. She used turtle oil, fat rendered from the turtle, to lubricate them. It was humiliating. It was painful. But they had lost all sense of privacy. They were just organisms trying to function. Lynn was the emotional anchor. While Dougal was the stern captain who kept them disciplined, Lynn was the one who told them stories. She sang to the twins. She promised them that they would go back to Scotland and have ice cream. She kept their minds from breaking. The dinghy had a new problem. It was hard, it vibrated. And it attracted sharks. Sharks would follow the boat. They would bump the fiberglass. Dougal realized that the sharks were waiting for them to tip over. But Dougal was not prey. He decided to turn the tables. "If they want to eat us, we will eat them." He lashed a knife to the end of an oar to make a spear. When a shark came close, Dougal waited. He stabbed the shark in the eye or the gills. They hauled the sharks on board. Shark meat is tough. It tastes like ammonia. But it is wet. It has fluid. They ate the sharks. The family had become the apex predators. They were eating the things that were trying to eat them. The greatest gift came on day 20. Rain. A squall hit them. Usually rain at sea is miserable. It makes you cold. But for the Robertsons, it was manna from heaven. They used every container they had. They used the plastic bags from the onions. They used the turtle shells. They drank until their bellies were full. They washed the salt off their sores. For a few hours they weren't dying, they were just wet. Dougal started to believe they could make it. He calculated that the current was pushing them toward the doldrums, a place with no wind. He made makeshift paddles. "We are going to row to Costa Rica," he said. It was 1,000 miles away. It was insane, but it gave the boys a purpose. They took shifts rowing. It kept their muscles from atrophying. Day 38, July 23, 1972. They were emaciated. They looked like skeletons wrapped in rags. Dougal was on watch. He saw a shape on the horizon. A ship. A Japanese tuna trawler, the Toka Maru *. They had seen ships before. They had been ignored before. They only had one flare left. One. If they fired it and the ship didn't see it, they were doomed. Dougal waited. He waited until the ship was at its closest point. His hands were shaking. He pulled the cord. The flare shot up. It burned red against the gray sky. The family held their breath. The ship kept going. Lynn started to cry. They didn't see it. But then, the ship turned. It banked hard to the starboard. It was coming toward them. The Toka Maru pulled alongside the tiny dinghy. The Japanese sailors looked down. They didn't see a life raft. They saw a tiny rowboat filled with 6 wild-looking humans holding huge chunks of dried turtle meat. They threw a rope. Dougal caught it. But here is the gone-wrong twist of the rescue. The sailors wanted to hoist them up. Dougal refused help. "We will climb," he said. He wanted to prove to the sailors and to himself that they weren't victims, they were survivors. They climbed the rope ladder. When they got to the deck, they couldn't stand. Their legs collapsed. The Japanese crew rushed to them. They gave them water, they gave them rice. One of the sailors looked at the dinghy. "That," he asked in broken English, "you live in that?" Dougal nodded. The sailor shook his head. "Impossible." The Robertsons were taken to Panama. They were celebrities. But the transition was hard. The twins hoarded food. They hid bread under their pillows because they were terrified it would be taken away. Dougal wrote a book, Survive the Savage Sea *, which became a manual for maritime survival. His strict discipline, which the family hated at the time, was credited with saving their lives. Lynn's medical care saved them from infection. But the most amazing part, they didn't hate the ocean. Dougal and Lynn eventually bought another boat. They went back to farming, but the sea was always in their blood. They forgave the whales. Dougal famously said, "We were in their world, they were just protecting it." The Robertson family proved that the nuclear family is the ultimate survival unit. When you are fighting for yourself, you might give up. But when you are fighting for your children, You become superhuman. They drank blood, they fought sharks, they sat in a box for 38 days. And they all came home. This story is just incredible. The idea of the boat sinking in 60 seconds is my worst nightmare, and drinking turtle blood, I don't know if I could do it. Do you think Dougal's strict martial law was necessary, or was he too hard on the kids? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you are amazed by this family's resilience, please hit that asterisk like asterisk button and subscribe asterisk. I have a story coming next week about a man who was swallowed by a hippo and lived to describe the inside of its stomach. Stay safe, watch out for black fins, and never give up the ship.